मैं रश्मि एक बार फिर कर्नल विजय जो आज के गेस्ट स्पीकर हैं उनके साथ आपके सामने हूँ। तो सबसे पहले मैं श्री ब्रह्म प्रकाश गौड़ जी, हेमा जी और आप सबके बिहाफ पे कर्नल विजय को वेलकम करती हूँ। You are most welcome, Colonel Vijay. We are delighted to have you here once again. इससे पहले कि हम आज की इवनिंग की शुरुआत करें, चलिए आगे बढ़ते हैं। कुछ पल उनकी याद में जो हमेशा हमारा ध्यान रखते हैं। गुरुर् ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरा गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। लास्ट ट्यूसडे भी कर्नल विजय हमारे साथ थे, तो मेरे ख्याल से अब हम सबको उनके परिचय की आगे ज़रूरत नहीं है। लास्ट वीक उन्होंने हमको जो बातें बताई उसमें 3 चीज़ें बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट थी। सबसे पहले कंट्रोल ओवर सेंस ऑर्गन्स, कंट्रोल ओवर डाइटरी हैबिट्स एंड अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ कार्मिक थ्योरी। इस बार जो चीज़ें कर्नल विजय हमको बताने जा रहे हैं उनमें मेन है meditation and its technique, concept of religion, science and spirituality, and relevance of Sanskrit and Gita. पिछली बार कर्नल विजय के बारे में मैंने जो बातें बताई थी उसमें मैं आपको एक बात बताना भूल गई थी कि कर्नल विजय को 10 लैंग्वेजेस आती हैं। So this time you have one choice that you all can ask your questions in your choices language. So Colonel Vijay, I think the evening ahead is yours. आगे की शाम आपके नाम। Over to Colonel Vijay.
Thank you, ma'am. You can ask in a few of those languages. I don't know, but आपको जो है जवाब तो या तो हिंदी या इंग्लिश में ही मिलेगा, because it's जहाँ technical subject है, I may not be very proficient in that. All the same, thank you very much. Language has been a little passion with me. तो जहाँ भी जाते हैं वहीं को हो जाते हैं, you know, that sort of a thing. So I like languages. Thank you, Mrs. Rashmi Singh. Namaskar, ladies and gentlemen, and it's wonderful being with you all once again, and with blessings from God Sahib, and also with you know, the excellent services of Hema ji and her good wishes. I restart the program. Before that, I would like to play the video just like I did last time. Now, this composition is also from the great Adi Shankaracharya, and even the philosophy is also the same. And after this, with permission from God Sahib, we'll share it on the sort of media, and I'll now request. Also, the singer is the same. It's a very nice tune. More or less, it's the same on the permanence of the soul. You listen to it, you can easily connect with the other one. After that, we begin the program. Thank you, ma'am. You can start that. It's again a meditative composition. You can close your eyes and just reflect inwards.
न भूमिर्न तोयं न तेजो न वायुः न खं नेन्द्रियं वा न तेषां समूहः अनैकान्तिकत्वेन तदेकोऽवशिष्टशिवकेवलोऽहं 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 न वर्णा न वर्णाश्रमाचारधर्मा न मेधारणा ध्यानयोगादयोऽपि अनात्माश्रयाहं ममाध्यासहानात् तदेकोऽवशिष्टशिवकेवलोऽहं तदेकोऽवशिष्टशिवकेवलोऽहं न माता पिता वा न देवा न लोका न वेदा न यज्ञा न तीर्थं ब्रुवन्ति सुषुप्तौ निरस्तातिशून्यात्मकत्वात् तदेकोऽवशिष्टशिवकेवलोऽहं तदेकोऽवशिष्टशिवकेवलोऽहं न साङ्ख्यं न शैवं न तत्पाञ्चरात्रं न जैनं न मीमांसकादेर्मतं वा विशिष्टानुभूत्या विशुद्धात्मकत्वात् तदेकोऽवशिष्टशिवकेवलोऽहं तदेकोऽवशिष्टशिवकेवलोऽहं न चोर्ध्वं न चाधो न चान्तर्न बाह्यं न मध्यं न तिर्यं न पूर्वापरादित् वियद्व्यापकत्वादखण्डैकरूपः तदेकोऽवशिष्टशिवकेवलोऽहं तदेकोऽवशिष्टशिवकेवलोऽहं न शुक्लं न कृष्णं न रक्तं न पीतं न कुब्जं न पीनं न ह्रस्वं न दीर्घम् अरूपं तथा ज्योतिराकारकत्वात् तदेकोऽवशिष्टशिवकेवलोऽहं तदेकोऽवशिष्टशिवकेवलोऽहं न शास्ता न शास्त्रं न शिष्यो न शिक्षा न च त्वं न चाहं न चायं प्रपञ्चः स्वरूपावबोधो विकल्पासहिष्णुः तदेकोऽवशिष्टशिवकेवलोऽहं तदेकोऽवशिष्टशिवकेवलोऽहं न जाग्रन्न मे स्वप्नको वा सुषुप्तिः न विश्वो न वा तैजसः प्राज्ञको वा अविद्यात्मकत्वात्त्रयाणां तुरीयः तदेकोऽवशिष्टशिवकेवलोऽहं तदेकोऽवशिष्टशिवकेवलोऽहम् अपि व्यापकत्वाधिकत्वप्रयोगात् स्वतः सिद्धभावादनन्याश्रयत्वात् जगत्तुच्छमेतत्समस्तं तदन्यते तदेकोऽवशिष्टशिवकेवलोऽहं तदेकोऽवशिष्टशिवकेवलोऽहम् न चैकं तदन्यद्वितीयं कुतः स्यात् न वा केवलत्वं न चाकेवलत्वं न शून्यं न चाशून्यमद्वैतकत्वात् कथं सर्ववेदान्तसिद्धं ब्रवीमि कथं सर्ववेदान्तसिद्धं ब्रवीमि कथं सर्ववेदान्तसिद्धं ब्रवीमि
After listening to the divine composition, now we start the proceedings for today. Am I audible, Hemaji? Okay. We'll start the proceedings. To begin with, I'll just invoke a small prayer. Om Sahana Avatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. I welcome you all. Before I start today's session, I just want to clarify a few doubts, because after having received the video I had shared with some of my friends, and also we had we keep having weekly Gita classes gathering, and then there were a few questions. I just clarified that for the benefit of all, in case some of you the same question was lurking in your minds. The first thing is about the guru. So that somewhere is very skeptical. How can you have a formless guru, someone with whom you cannot talk, someone who cannot give you instructions or who cannot see? That requires a lot of, yes, it does require, but it's all a matter of surrender. If your thoughts are with the guru, there is a case of in Mahabharata, there is this Ekalavya was there. Ekalavya did not get guru in the form of Dronacharya. Dronacharya refused because he wanted Arjuna to be there, and he found the potential in Ekalavya that he could overtake Arjuna, so he did not. And why Dronacharya wanted Arjuna to be the best is another story. Someday I'll share. Or if there is time at the end, it will just take about 2-3 minutes. That's a very interesting story. You can share. Okay. So Ekalavya on his own, he decided that whether you come or not, I'm going to have you as my guru. And he made a clay pratima, a statue of Dronacharya. And he invoked him morning, evening, and he did all the archery in his presence. So you see, the powers of a guru. So without the guru himself knowing, he had imbibed all the knowledge. So this is there in the Shastras and Ramayana, Mahabharata. These are holy books. Ramayana and Mahabharata are not Puranas. For a lot of people do not know. They are not the Puranas. They're in a separate genre altogether. Then the second question was, how can you add narrated a story of a cobbler in Bangalore, and who even today, whenever I want to do some small little goodness as a Samaritan or help somebody, he comes to me. So in my mind, and I do it. They said, how can he is not a literate person, he is not a evolved person, but I felt he was a self-realized person. Here again, there are stories in our Shastras. In Mahabharata, again, there is a story of the sage Kaushika. You all must have heard of sage Kaushika. Now, he was a brilliant self-taught person, rishi. And then, once he was meditating under a tree, and a bird dropping fell on him. And then he was annoyed. He looked at the bird, and the bird got burnt and fell down. Now he had achieved a kind of rare siddhi, and which he himself did not know. And when the bird turned to ashes and fell to the ground, that was the time he realized that he had become very powerful. And that gave him a lot of, a kind of vanity, a kind of pride. And then he became too much of egoistic. So when he went for his bhiksha, he went to one of the houses and he said, Bhavati Bhikshan Dehi. The housewife was very busy tending to her sick husband. And then, so she said, you'll have to wait for some time. And then, but he was a little impatient. And when she came back after half an hour, so he was very annoyed. He thought of his siddhi powers of the bird and he stared at her. And that lady said, I'm not that bird who you think. And, so he was shocked. So he wondered how she knew about it. Now that is the self-realized soul. So he fell at her feet and he said, can you impart me jnana? So she said, you will get a jnana from a person who's a butcher. And he stays in a faraway place from here. You go to him and seek the Brahma Jnana. So this Kaushika goes there and he finds, and he asks a lot of people, where is so and so? Now that chap is Vyadaha Gita. In Mahabharata, there is one chapter called Vyada Gita. Vyada Gita is about this story. And then a lot of people in the village, in that place, know Vyada is a hunter. His job was to hunt animals. And on a street, he's a vendor. He used to sort of cut the animals and earn his livelihood as a butcher. So when he went there, he looks at him, he said, did that housewife send you? So here again he's shocked as to how for hundreds of miles away, how this Vyadha knew about him and that whole story. So he says, I'm doing my duty.
Sir, your voice is, we can't hear you. We lost you.
Is it okay now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. So finally, so that Vyasa meanwhile is doing his job, and then this sannyasi, Kaushika, he waits for him. He waits for him 2-3 hours till such time he sold his entire the product. And then by the time it's a little in the evening, then he says, you come to my house. He goes to the house. He looks after his parents. He prostrates in front of them. He sort of inquires about them, then his family, his children. All the time the sannyasi is waiting. And ultimately, when he finds time, he says, yes, what is that you have come for? He says, I come from Brahmagyan. And then sannyasi says, I've got the Brahmagyan. I don't need anything more. So here what you're trying to say is, even these people, household people who are doing a laborer job, they're all gurus in their self-realized soul. You don't have to have high degrees. You don't have to have a lot of money. And I've seen myself during my service in very deep interiors, very simple village souls, some of them, that is called Viveka. So how do you attain moksha? And among that, the first is Viveka. Viveka is the identification, the discrimination that you are not the body. For instance, this is my hand, this is my laptop, this is my book, and this is my body. Now, in each one of these, there are two entities. When I say, this is my book, that means the book and I, my house and I, my son and I. So my body is my body and I. So you are not the body. That's the first. The moment you get that discrimination, that is called viveka. So again, here you say, my mind is not working, or my mind is down. That means you are not the mind. So you are not the body, you are not the mind. Then who is that you are? So that gets you thinking. And if you see from childhood onwards, right till the age, our your forms have changed. As a shishuhu, what do they call a small little infant, and then you're grown as a child, as a teenager, and as a man, and subsequently you get middle age, and then you get old, and you really get old, right? Your body has changed, your body has undergone, but there is something within that body has not changed. So that discrimination is very important. And the third question which people asked was, ahara, how does food make a difference? There are a lot of people here also feel the food doesn't make a difference. He said so and so eats everything and he is fine, he's a good man and all, but food does make a lot of difference. In Sanskrit and in spirituality, a lot of lessons are conveyed through parables. In Christian culture, you have, they call it parables. Parables are spiritual stories. And so also, in fact, your all 18 Puranas are nothing but parables. You know, every story has got there a story within story within story. So, and there's one very interesting story which is often told about Ahara. There was again a great saint, and then he was so famous that when the king came to know that thousands of people are visiting him, you find it happens today also. The moment one person becomes very famous, so the politicians start flocking there because it was he went which is Entourage, and then he met the sannyasi and he was deeply impressed. And the king told him, why don't, this is not the place for someone of your stature to live in forest. Why don't you come and stay in my palace? So the sannyasi refused. He says, I'm quite happy. So the king persuaded him a lot. He says, I can't have my subject and such a distinguished person to be living in these jungles. So finally, the sannyasi relented and he very reluctantly went to him. And he was given the what is called the VVIP suite in his palace, and with all the best of foods and a lot of paraphernalia to look after him. And he had that the one of the deluxe kind of a bath which only the queens and other used. So after a few days of good food, 10 days, the sannyasi, one day he went for a bath, and then he found that there is a Naulaka har of the queen which she had forgotten there. Then his mind got corrupted, so he stole that and he went away from there. That is just on a flick of a moment, that mind. So in the evening when it was found, everybody searched and they found that the sannyasi is not there. And the king sent his soldiers hunting for him in the forest all over. And it took after about 5, 6, 7 days, they couldn't find him. And finally, when the soldiers were searching, so the sannyasi sitting in a small little hut, he looked at the soldiers, he called them, he said, are you looking for me? They said, yes. He says, are you looking for this har? He said, yes. They said, yes. So he said, you take me to the king. So they took him to the king, and the king said, why did you have to do this? I gave you so much of respect, you got all the thing. So the sannyasi said only one thing. And he says, having done this thing, why have you now surrendered? On your own you came. He says, I was very happy when I was there, but when I came here, your food has corrupted me. It has changed. Your food has put that thing in my mind. He says, but why did you return it? He says, when I went back after 7 days, I went back to my own food, that is sattvic food. I realized what I had done was wrong. Now, this may just be a story, but there is a lot of weight in the story. So you may. Then the control of mind. Mind is supposed to be chanchal. Chanchalam. Chanchal is, it's a very, very fluctuating thing. It's not stable. Now, unless you rein in the mind, like last time I said, when the river is going and when the river is still, then you see the floor of the river, and there the soul starts shining through, and that's how. So this mind has to be controlled. So meditation is all about this control of all of the mind, because a lot of people were asking, how do you control the mind? Can mind be controlled? Then with this, now we come to there is a difference between religion and spirituality. At the end, if any of you have got any views on this, I would really like to hear from you, because when I go, I talk to people, I discuss with people on this. There are too many views. A lot of people, even in here in this group, I'm sure would believe that spirituality has got nothing to do with religion. These are two separate things. There is an overlap, I guess. There must be I won't say a thin line, but there must be a blur band between spirituality and religion. There is a connection, for the simple reason that I may be very spiritual. So the main tool for spirituality is meditation. So when I do the meditation, I do Om. Now, Om is a religious symbol. And subsequently, some people think of Shiva, or some people think of Vishnu or something. So there is a foundation, there is an anchor on which you base your thing. Similarly, in other religions, in Christianity, in Islam, they all have the rosary. They do that, I'm sure. So a person who's an atheist, or a person who considers himself non-religious, even an agnostic, now how does he, where is the support for him to pursue his spiritual? So that is one thing which one can go on debating. But I personally feel this was a question asked. So that's why I'm just saying this, religion and spirituality. And the last thing is, can an atheist in Hindi is Nastik, in Sanskrit also they call it Nastik. Can an atheist be spiritual? Here again, people will have their own views, but I feel that the core of spirituality exists in the existence of God. There is an existence of superpower. Without that, spirituality is not possible, because at the end of it, whom we will take as a cornerstone, a key area from where you pursue your thing. These are, I thought I'll just share. And in the end, there is something I want to talk about a sage Dadichi. If you remember, our Vivek Bhau, he talked about Dadichi. Dadichi was a great sage. And in the end, if there's a little time, I request Hemaji to remind me. I'll just share about 2-3 minutes on that thing. Now, first thing is we straight away come on to that the meditation. The first part is meditation. Now, what exactly is meditation? If you Google, you'll find more than 500, 600 sites on meditation, and there are different views. There is a Western view, there is a Oriental view, and there is our own old scriptures and all that. If you throw your mind back about 25, 30 years before the onset of these mobiles and these mobile communications and all that, very few people spoke about meditation. And meditation in the Indian tradition, we know it only as Dhyan. Now, Dhyan, there was only one. Today, there is a plethora of kind of meditations which have come up. There is meditation for if you want to have a booming business. There is a meditation if you want to do well in studies. There is a meditation for health. There is meditations which are for material gains. In my view, there is no such thing. The meditation has got, like last time I said, there are two words. One is Laukika Sansar. Laukika Sansar is your material world which is there. We see, we talk, we hear, we interact, we discuss. Raga, Dvesha is all there. But there is another world in which there is no such thing. The mind doesn't exist. There, the mind does not get a visa. The mind cannot go to the other world. And there is absolute this across, it transcends the mind. That is why it is said it transcends the mind. So in meditation, you go to the other world. And how do you go to the other world? You go, this meditation is itself a process to go to the other world. So from your materialistic world, you switch on to the other world. How you go? You may go by various methods. There is a bridge. This meditation, you can say, is a bridge. There is a bridge. How do you cross the bridge? You may travel by foot. You may travel by go by car or a truck or a tractor or whatever it is, and that's how you use that bridge. So also there may be different techniques of meditation. If you have, those of you who are interested in this spiritual thing, if you have read about Osho, I've heard his video, and also I have read his thing, wherein he talks about 112 techniques of meditations. Now, I don't know how you differentiate between first and the 80th or the 90th and the 112, because by that time you start doing this, you understand, and you have to understand this through the mode of mind. It's only mind, because when you take out a thing, you're trying to understand it, the mind which is trying to understand. Okay. And the small little differentiation between one and all. So when I'm going to do the meditation, it will take years for you to even to understand. And Osho, exactly, he says that it took him 2-3 years, and after that. So, but for me, meditation is dhyan, and that is given in Gita. We'll talk about it when I discuss about the Gita. And there is only one type of one meditation. Please remember, these are my views based on what I have studied. Meditation is just a spiritual practice. You cannot have meditation for well-being of oneself, for health, for glowing, for corporate meditation. I don't know what all types of meditation. If you go through this, there is some mindfulness meditation also. I'm not criticizing, people must have gone through, but also meditation today has become more of a mind-oriented sort of exercise. To me, it's a very spiritual thing, because when you talk about meditation, you just close your eyes, you switch off, you put the mind to rest, and then you are in the other world. In the other world, there are no senses, and mind doesn't exist. So you are in, and to me, meditation is a spiritual practice which is a tool with which you connect God. You connect the cosmic consciousness. That is only the meditation. Now, what you get by way of good health or good relationship, people say we both are doing meditation, therefore there is more harmony at home and some of the things. These are all side effects, or you can say incidental, because when the mind is stable and when things are cool, automatically. The other day I was just listening, there are the local school, there was one thing wherein there's a Gita Parivar. You must have seen off late, there are a lot of Gita classes being run. It is by this organization. They had about 250, 300 children, and they made them recite Gita and all this, made them do meditation and all. And they all turned out to be toppers in that class. It's not because, to become toppers in the class, they have done this meditation, but by doing meditation, they develop a stillness. It is called Sthita Prajna. There is a thing in Gita called Sthita Prajna. Sthita Prajna ko bhasha, Arjuna asks Krishna. So meditation helps you connect with God. And just now there are some people who are talking about diseases and all. See, when your mind goes to that, it gets attached, then you're all the time bothered. You may all have heard of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. He was suffering from throat cancer, and he was suffering from very, very severe throat cancer. Some of his bhaktas were so agitated, they said, you must get yourself operated. And we feel, he says, no, I don't feel any the pain. It's a karma I have to go through. I will. So he treated the body, and we just now said, I am not the body. When I'm not the body, then how is it affecting me? He says, yes, body is there. It is just like a tree is there. A tree, a branch is a little decomposed. It is there, but the tree is there. It is, if you can detach yourself, I know it is easier said than done, but then that is the core. Ultimately, that is what one has to do. So that is what meditation. What is the purpose of meditation? It is to connect oneself, the soul, with the higher soul, the Atma. So once it is there, all others. God has been very kind. I haven't had any such major thing in the last quite some time. Never. But an odd day when you fall sick and all, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me because there is that prana shakti which heals itself, and I heal myself through either pranayama or through ahara. Just these two things are required. And even better is langana, fasting. You do fast, it is amazing amount of energy the prana shakti does to heal, because prana shakti's job is to heal. It looks after the wellness of your thing. I think Vivek Babu had covered it very well. Annamaya kosha, pranamaya kosha, manamaya. These are sheets, and ultimately where prana is there. In Gita chapter 6th chapter talks about meditation, and there it is given very in detail what is meditation, why meditation, and how can this thing. So if you look at these days, I can just share one experience with you. These days, every resort does some meditation workshop, 3 days, 5 days, and per day they'll charge you about 5,000, 10,000 rupees, and then of course, the setting is very good, the ambience is awesome, and then you get lovely food, lovely people, you interact, garden. It's all material. That has got nothing to do with meditation. Then at the end of it, they'll go into meditation for next 3-4 days. It's just talking, very little of this thing. At the other end is the vipassana meditation, which is there. That's also a type of meditation, which was taught by Buddha to his direct disciples, and then it was passed on. But in the meanwhile, so many new techniques came up, because Buddhism went from India to China, and then from there to Japan, and there they had more number of branches. The original the Buddhism thing, it completely went off from what Buddha had taught. So I'm not criticizing, each one is entitled to, but for me, meditation is only one thing. It is a tool to connect yourself with God, and it is a spiritual practice. And so if you, after this, go back and Google and see types of meditation, you will get all types of, some very funny types of the meditation, and all related to how to acquire wealth through meditations. How can you acquire wealth? What has meditation to do with this? That's my thing. And 30 years ago, hardly anybody spoke of this, because meditation is more of a very, very personal thing, and it's a purely a personal exercise, and it's done as a group after satsang and all, so that you're all on the same frequency. Even here, when I take the Bhagwadgita classes, when the people come, the moment they come, we chant a mantra, then we go into a little silence mode. The idea is very simple. It's the purification of mind, because people come from different activities. Somebody is cooking, and somebody is doing shopping, somebody has just come back from a quarrel, and the mind gets polluted. So it is just like when you come home, you wash your good old days, at least they would do it. You wash your hands, legs, feet, and all before you enter. So Angan mein chota sa, they had a tap, and they used to have that, and then they would come. So also, before you enter the spiritual world of discussion, you always chant it with a mantra, keep silence, and then you come on to that, so that at least it puts you in the correct tone and mood. Now that is what is all about this meditation. Then yeah, and in chapter 6 of Gita 34, when I come to that, he says, Chanchalam hi manaha Bhalavad Drudam. Bhalavad Drudam has got 4 implications. Bhalavad Drudam is this mind itself. It has got 4 kind of. It is very obstinate. अगर एक चीज पकड़ लेता है तो it just wants to see that it is done. This happens mainly with people who are in the growing up age, 15, 16, 18. If a chap wants to do उसके अंदर मन लग गया भाई मुझे ये कर रहा है, you can't change it. Or if a girl wants to get married to a person, no matter how much you change, how much this thing done it. So this is what mind. And if one is doing meditation as per this, then the intellect decides what is good for them, what is bad for them. Like in my case, I still have this Dakshinamurti. So whenever I have people say, how do you contact him? How do you use it? Got a kind of, in today's technical jargon, you got an email, you got some kind of how do you contact him? You don't contact him, just meditate and you surrendered yourself to him and you get a message. It's not like those Bollywood movies, he'll come some, hey Balak, my boss person who tumse and all, nothing happens like that. It just happens, you just get a message. And whatever you're going to do thereafter is the correct one. Take it. Sometimes it may not work out in our favor, but in the long run, it does. So much about meditation. And next, we'll go on to Gita. Now, yeah, there's enough time. We'll go on to Gita. Now, what exactly is Gita? Gita is one of the greatest philosophical texts, and it's also very practical. It is not just philosophy. It is also a practical philosophy, you can say. And it is also with the spirituality. It is the teachings of the God himself to Arjuna, to a soldier in the battlefield who was confused and who was smitten by moha. Arjuna's biggest weakness was his emotional attachment. A lot of people say, why was Gita taught? Was it a thing? It is only because he was, it is a kind of delusion, At that particular time, Arjuna was not in a state to fight. When both the armies had been arrayed in the Kurukshetra war, and then he, after having seen enormous formations of both these armies, and then he looked at his own gurus and his own uncles and grandfather and cousins and all that, Arjuna was shaken and he said, I can't fight. He gave up. Then it was at that time the Krishna Krishna did not say anything in anything. It's only in the 2nd chapter onwards Krishna starts giving that Gitopadesha. Now this particular thing, it's not an independent grantha or text. It is a part of Mahabharata, and it comes in the 6th chapter, which is called Bhishma Parva. Mahabharata has 18 chapters. Here I'll slightly digress a bit. With 18, Vyasa had something to do with this number 18. I don't know how many of you are aware. I'm sure a lot of people must be aware of this. Vyasa had something to do, because whatever he did, all his writing, there was this number 18 attached. It is a mystery. People have not been, they've given so many versions, so many justifications and explanations. But what is this word about 18? This number about 18? If you see, the Gita contains 18 chapters. Mahabharata it contains of 18 parvas. There is a difference between chapter and parvas. Mahabharata has got 18 this thing. Then Ashtadasha Puranani. Vyasa wrote 18 Puranas. Okay. And similarly, there are 4 or 5 other things. There is a thing called Akshauhini. Akshauhini is supposed to be an army formation. Like we have a section, a platoon, company, battalion, brigade, division. So also in Mahabharata, on the same line they had. It's the other way around. In Mahabharata they had, we have followed the same thing. Same. You can imagine it was such a scientific formation that it has not changed after so many years, because it must mathematically it has been worked out, and it's a very, very scientific kind of structure of the army. And even today it has not changed. We call it section, platoon, and this thing like a company is called a gulma, but it was there. Now instead of cavalry, they have Gajasena, Ashwasena, and elephant cavalry, they have Gajasena. Infantry, they have Padati. It's almost the same, except the weapons have changed. Otherwise, basically the strategy and tactics. In my MPhil, my paper was on this. And then there also, if you see the numbers, it is 21,870 was 2,18,370 were the number of troops, infantry troops in one of the Akshauhinis. If you add them together, it again is 18. So wherever you have these numbers, it's amazing how this. So it has 18 chapters, and each of this chapter gives out a particular the message. Then we'll discuss each of this chapter very briefly, 1 or 2 lines, what exactly are the thing. And in this, there are only 4 characters. One is Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra was what you call in movies, they call it, he made a cameo entry. He just came for this thing, he says, Dharmakshetre, Kurukshetre, he asked that first thing. And after that, he doesn't figure. Thereafter, you have Sanjaya, and then you have Krishna, and then Arjuna. And Krishna has got 17 names in this. In each of these chapters, he is addressed by a different name, and so also Arjuna, he also has got 17 names. Sometimes Sabyasachi, sometimes Kaunteya, sometimes. And each one of them has a particular significance when that name is asked. It is not just his that name has come out. I'll tell you, there are some very, very interesting things. Now, Bhagwadgita is a poem. Okay. Now, it has been structured. It has been metered. Okay. The number, it is called Anushtup. The number of letters which are there are absolutely precise, including Samyuktakshara. Samyuktakshara is Prapnoti is Pa and Ra. It is treated as one word. So, Kanjusi ke had bolte na, that every letter, even half letter, it cannot exceed that. So when a name is put, it has to see that it fits into the meter. So every sloka has got this Anushtup. It is under Anushtup Chanda. In Vedas, it has got Vedanga. There are 6 of them, and one of them is this Chandas, and in that the metric. So, and it has got 700 slokas, which has been fitted. Some have got the smallest chapter has got 20 slokas, that is Purushottama Yoga, 15th chapter, and the longest is Moksha Sannyasa Yoga, that is the last one, 18th chapter. So Baki others are 40, 50, and 60, 72. Even the second chapter is quite long, 72, and each one of it is on a particular subject which has been picked up, and he gradually takes it. Krishna takes Arjuna gradually from a situation of when he's absolutely down, mentally so low, and to the right one he says, yes, I've understood, I will fight. So these are the four characters alone which are there. And then another very interesting thing about Bhagwadgita, I can say, is in 1935, when Gandhiji went to London, and he went to one of the most prominent bookstores there. And at that time, Gandhiji had just taken up to reading Gita. So he asked that salesperson there, which is the book which is most sold and sought after. So she said it is Bhagavad Gita. So he was stunned. He said, how can, he says, yes, we almost have some hundreds of copies sold every day. So its popularity is there. Like last time I said, if somebody asks you who got the Nobel Prize for literature last year or 10 years back or 15 years back, will not remember. But this book has been today translated into 64, 65 languages. It contains enormous amount of wisdom, and then the philosophical test, no doubt, but in your day-to-day thing it is there. Another thing which I not fully don't subscribe to this, these days it's become a little commercial in the sense a lot of universities and a lot of corporates are using it to say that in order to improve, streamline our structure, streamline our working. The Bhagavad Gita is a spiritual, it doesn't fit into the material world. But when you start reading it, it stables your mind and it helps you in mind control. And what you get is secondary, it's the fallout of those things. Now, I'll just go through each one of these chapters, just one line. And the first chapter, it is, we all know, I've already said that Arjuna is in a state of delusion. He doesn't want to fight and he is very low moral. And at the end of the first chapter, he just puts his Gandiva, that is his bow and arrow, and he falls back and tells Krishna, I'm not going to fight. In the second chapter, it is called Sankhya Yoga. Now, Sankhya in Sanskrit means analytical. It is something to do with Sankhya also. Sankhya is basically to do with your numbers. So it is an analytical thing. And Sankhya Yoga, the first 10 slokas, Arjuna keeps lamenting. He starts off from where he left in the first chapter and he goes on and on. Now, before this, I would like to say there are a lot of people who, instead of studying Gita for its value, for its gems of nuggets of wisdom, they will ask all rational questions. Now, rational questions is in a battlefield, before the battle, reading of reciting the 700 slokas would have taken about 3 hours, 3.5 hours. What were the rest of the troops doing? What was happening on the battlefield? Where were they just standing? Were they listening? What are they saying? I don't know. It's not very relevant to the thing, because at the end of it, because it distracts you from the focus of what the teachings are. But if somebody at all wants to have a very rational, I was also thinking, when I go to Rishikesh every year, by the way, for the last 10 years, just for about 1.5 months, about 5 to 6 weeks, Uttarkashi, Rishikesh and all, where I do a little bit of my sabbatical. And there I come in contact with a lot of people for 40, 50 years who have done things. And there was one thing which struck me. If somebody were to tell you about 25 years back that my entire PDF text of 500 pages can be transformed into a pen drive within 5 minutes, nobody would believe. Okay. But today you are doing it, therefore we believe, because technology has helped. So at that time, the power of the mind was such that both Arjuna and Krishna were very, very highly realized souls. Arjuna himself was very, very, knowledgeable. He had 18 districts. He knew all the Vedas, he knew all the Vedangas, and whatever the vidyas which are there. He knew most of the kalas. There are 64 kalas. He knew most of them. So he was a very, very evolved person. So whatever Krishna, I think, explained to him, he got the whole thing. It must have taken just a few minutes, about 10 or 15 minutes, which is not a very big thing. But that is very secondary. I'll request younger people not to get bogged down in this very rational question, because these are all scientific things. And science has got is a very, very, like last time I said, limited boundaries. We work in a very limited sort of thing. Yeah. So the first 10 slokas of chapter 2, it is a lamentation which continues, and it is only in the 11th sloka the Krishna begins his thing. Okay, till then the Krishna doesn't talk about it at all. The thing he says, Ashochan anva shochastam pragnavadansa bhashase. Krishna is telling Arjuna, you talk like a very wise man. You know, all this, how can I kill my thing? In the second chapter, in fact, Krishna starts off saying that, Gurun Hatva, how can I kill my guru and then lead a luxurious life? He's talking to Bhishma and Dronacharya and all that. How can I kill my grandfather and lead such a luxurious life? I would rather go begging and all, So Krishna tells him, he takes a jibe at him. He says, you're talking like a very wise man. Gata suna gata suncha. He says, the people who are dead and gone, about them you don't regret. Nanu shochita panditaha. Nanu shochita panditaha is the wise men don't grieve over this thing. So with that, the second chapter starts. But second chapter is also known for the first half of second chapter is all deals with Atma, how the Atma is indestructible. Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahata pavakaha, nachenam kedanti apo, na shoshati marutaha. That means no weapon can touch the soul, no fire can burn the soul, and no water can immerse or submerge the soul. No winds can dry the soul. That means he's talking about, this is normally said even in our thing, Antesti, the last rites where when it is done, and the Panditji, at the time it is in front of the dead body, this is said. So the Atma, the indestructibility of Atma is said in the second sloka. And also in the later part of the sloka is talk about karmanye vadhikarasya mahapareshu kadate. That very famous thing of your job is to do the duty and not to look for the fruits. So a lot of people here again ask, if the fruits we are not going to get, then why should we do? It's not that you are not going to get the fruits, but that should not be, you don't do for the fruit. You just do your job, and the fruits, if you are there, if your karmas are there, and if the job has been done, because all these things you are surrendering to the kartrutvam bhavana. That means aham. You are not taking the doership. So it is there. And it's a very long second chapter. It's one of the very interesting for those who want to study Gita. Then we go into the third chapter, that is the karma. Now here again, in the a lot of my friends would ask, we don't believe in karma. What happens to somebody who doesn't believe in all? Like last time I had said, karma has it's got nothing to do with your personal beliefs. It is there. Karma happens, whether you like it or not. Because what happens when good things happen to us, we think it's because of our achievements. And when bad things happen to us, we say God has not been very kind. I think that's not a correct thing. You earn whatever you have, you are enjoying, you are experiencing. Whatever you are experiencing today, good, bad, or otherwise, is entirely your own effort. You got good marks, you've done well in the exams. You failed, you haven't done well in that. It's as simple as that. And now when it comes to karma, there is a very, again, a beautiful story of Ramayana, Mahabharata. If you see in Ramayana, this Dasharatha was one of the victims of this karma. Dasharatha, when he was young king, he was a great hunter in Ayodhya. So once when he had gone for hunting at night, and then he heard an elephant drinking water, and he kills the elephant. And when he comes near, he identifies that it is a young boy by name Shravan Kumar. And then he had carried his parents, it is on the Sarayu Nadi in Ayodhya. And then he finds that this boy is dead, and then his parents are nearby, they both are blind, and they are waiting for him. He had gone to fetch water, but when he was taking the water, that sound made of the water filling the pot, he thought, Dasharatha thought that was the elephant, and that Shabdavedi, he had heard that sound, and in that direction, Dasharatha was a very skilled, archer, and he fired the thing. And so when Shravan Kumar's father came to know that, and Dasharatha was a very sort of responsible and a wise king, very honest man. That's why he went and he said, this boy has been killed, somebody must be nearby. When he went, he found his parents. This is there in Mahabharata. So when he asked his father, Dasharatha could, like, in place things hit and run. He could have just gone away. Nobody would have known. He would have been the king. But that was the honesty of the king. So then this old man curses him. He says, just like you have killed my son, in your last days, you will be separated from your son. And that was the curse which visited upon Dasharatha when Rama had to go to the forest. So it is there. Similarly, Parikshit was the son of Abhimanyu and grandson of Arjuna. So when Parikshit ruled, he was a very great king again, very benevolent and very wise and all that. So once he goes to the forest, he's doing hunting. I don't know what is this with all these kings. They get into trouble whenever they go for hunting. Even Panduraj had this thing. So he wanted some direction. So he asked Shaunaka Maharshi, who was into deep penance. So when he didn't reply, ego got him, and he said, look, I'm the king and you're not even talking to me. So there was a dead snake, he put it around his neck, and then that was a curse. So when Shaunaka even then didn't know, because he was in deep penance. And when his son came, he saw this, and then he cursed him. He said, you're going to die in 7 days. This snake will kill you, will come and sting you. And that is the time. But Parikshit, like a good king, he accepted. He said, this is what I have done and I deserve. So then he listens to Bhagavatam by Shuka. Shuka was son of Vyasa. And Shuka was known as a great storyteller. Wherever he went, he would have so many rishis flocking to him to listen to him. And he was again a very, very evolved soul. And Shuka, so the king tells him, can you tell me the thing Bhagavatam? Because anybody who listens to Bhagavatam gets moksha. So he says, but only thing is, I am the only listener. So Shuka said, it doesn't make a difference. Bhagavatam is such a text that the number of people who listen doesn't matter. So Shuka tells him the thing. So that is the story about this karma. There are so many stories. All 18 Puranas have got hundreds of stories of karma, which visit sooner or later. At least, I strongly believe there is today, even in the West, they have started sort of narrating, because this word karma is there in the English language, by the way. Then fourth chapter is Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. It is a transcendental knowledge. First, this knowledge was given by Krishna to the sun god, Vivaswan. He tells Arjuna this thing. and then it is passed on by ages. Jnana, Karma, Sannyasa, Yoga, by generation after generation, it is called disciplic succession, parampara, by parampara. And whenever Krishna, there is a decline in moral standards, Krishna says, I'll be present. I'm sure you all must have heard of that very famous sloka, Yada Yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharat adhutanam adharmasya Adhyatmanam srujamyaham. So when things really get bad, he is going to come. So I don't bother. When you have Krishna himself has said it, why do you get worried for small little things? Afghanistan mein ho gaya, idhar ho gaya, hota rahega. These are all, this is Kali Yuga. In Kali Yuga, all these things will happen. And when the things really get bad, he is there. Nobody has said it, but he said so and so. Krishna himself has said this. This is there in Gita. It's again a matter of faith. If you have faith, in fact, Gita is for those only people who have faith. Shraddha, the definition of Shraddha, Guru Vakyeshu Vishwasaha. That's Shraddha. Whatever the Guru has said, right, wrong, and all, you have that Vishwasa, that is Shraddha. Otherwise, if you don't have Shraddha, then all this is, it only becomes academic. Then it is said, and it's true, I have seen, whosoever does not believe in this, doubt the spiritual knowledge. If you doubt the spiritual knowledge, they can never be happy. There is always instability of mind and instability of, and whereas the moment you believe in this spiritual knowledge, you have surrendered everything. Or kya hai? I mean, you don't have to that worry about. Most of our thing is because of ajnana. Ajnana is, avidya. Ajnana is avidya. Like jiva is in a sort of avidya only. But when that ajnana is removed, jiva becomes the soul. Jiva becomes the atma. I tell you, we all have seen, as they say in English, they call it, they call it ignorance is bliss. Ignorance is bliss. It's so true. My daughter was working in Bombay quite some time back, and she was working for an MNC, and then there was a presentation which she had to give to about 150 very important clients that come from all over Southeast Asia. And this program was in Taj, Bombay. And then, they had acquired the thing. Next day morning at about 11:30, 12 o'clock, she went. She had forgotten some presentation material and all. They were staying in Andheri at that time. So her director said, you better go and get it immediately. So she took a cab, and then she went to a place, and at about 5:30 or 6 o'clock, we were waiting. We tried to call, and then 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, there was no thing. That happened to be on 26/11, by the way. And 26/11 was the day of this, the terrorist attack in Taj. And it was just, I think, good luck. She had forgotten that. And because she tried to come back, and there was everything was in curfew, and they were saying she could not contact my son-in-law. My son-in-law could not, because everything, the mobiles and everything had been suspended. It was such a nightmare. So we didn't know what was happening. Only thing, next day we came to know all this has happened. So till such time we didn't know, we were very happy. The moment we got to know that attack has taken place, then we got like somebody I overheard some time back, you start worrying about thing. I think it was Hemaji. You start worrying about imagination. As long as you don't know it, it's okay. So transcendental knowledge is something else. Transcendental knowledge is, it is not the knowledge of the worldly knowledge, but it is when you transcend the mind, that is the knowledge. This is there in chapter 4. In chapter 5, it is sannyasa yoga. Sannyasa, as the name denotes, is renunciation. Renunciation means you've given up everything. Now, giving up everything doesn't mean that you go and sit in the Himalayas in a cave and do nothing. You're doing your routine job, but you are not doing anything for yourself. The philosophy is everything in this world belongs to the Almighty. In the case of Gita, since we are talking, everything belongs to Krishna. No, and it's only his thing. At his pleasure, we are doing things. So you have renounced everything. You have not taken any. If you become the president of India, it is his goodwill. Or if you have gone through some problem, it's your karma. You have not taken anything upon yourself. You surrendered. The consequences of any action that has taken place, it's all his. Good as bad. So you have surrendered totally to him. Now, this is what Sannyasa Yoga says. This frees you from entanglement. We do get entangled into a lot of things. Here again, I give a very nice example. I was living in Uti, not exactly Uti, Kunur, where the army cantonment is there. And I was there for about 7-8 years. Very beautiful place. One of the best places where one should be living. But because of some compulsions, you go away again, it is karma. You get entangled somewhere else. And then the circumstances of life takes you there. So there we had one Swamiji from Ramakrishna Mutt from Calcutta. And then he was about 80 years old. He was very well learned, and he had been sent there because he had done a lot of hard work all his life, and as a holiday posting, because they have the posting systems. So he was sent there. So when he was sent there, they had a lot of land in Ooty. So they wanted to expand. They had come up with few more buildings, one more temple, dining hall, and few other things and all. So for that, he was an engineer by profession earlier, so he had made some plans, and then the building started. Then they started getting into contracts, and then local permission, then municipal corporation, and so many things. And he got into that. And once when I went to meet him, he says he was not finding time at all. And every time the people were asking him, bribed and all this. A spiritual Swami is 82. And so he says, this is what is called, you get entangled. No matter how many. He says, I came to Ramakrishna, this thing, only to give away everything. No, I wanted to give up everything. And then in spite of that, you get entangled. This is called entanglement. And this is what Krishna talks in chapter 5. And then he says, once you give up that, you say, it's not mine, I am not the doer, and samarpan kar do. Automatically, this thing will not be treated as part of your karma. So this may sound a little philosophical and for some younger people to understand, but I'm sure once you commit yourself to this, you'll be able to understand. Then the next is dhyana. We already discussed about dhyana. Dhyana is nothing but control of mind. If you're able to control your mind, which is the senses, then you are into a different world. That bridge which I told you, this world and that world, the moment you control your mind, you are into the other world. And in the other world, there is no sorrow. Because sorrow comes from thoughts. Sorrow, all these sorrows and all these raga, dvesha, pleasures and sorrows, everything comes from, you eat a gulab jamun, you have to face the consequences of that. Your sugar goes up. So it is raga, dvesha. But sorrow, this concept itself, this is how in Buddhism, shunya, you go into the other thing, there is no sorrow. So that's why people who are in a state of meditative thing, they're because all the time they're fixed with the God. Their thoughts are fixed with the God. And it is a good servant and a bad servant. Mind can be a very good servant if it is under your control. It can be a very bad servant if it is not under your control. It is just like in some of the big offices, you have the small clerks and peons. They have so much of powers. They can give an interview or permit somebody to come and meet the boss, or no, they can send him away. Now, if you're honest, if you're strict, then these people will play to your tunes. But if you're if they know your weakness, then they can mishandle you the same. That is why in chapter 5, it is called Bandhuratmaiva Ripuratmanaha. Ripu means enemy. And Bandhu is like, Atma can be your friend or it can be your enemy. So it is, if you treat it like a servant, in Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, also he talks about this. The mind can be your a good servant or it can be a bad enemy. I mean, he can be enemy if you have no control. And I have seen this quite a number of few cases. My own landlord in Bangalore, long time back, he was an MP. He had a lot of very, very corrupt to the core. He knew, his manager knew all the secrets, everything that goes on, and nothing could happen without his manager because he was under his grip. So, but if a person is honest, that the servant has to serve him. That is it. Then in chapter 6, we go on to Gnana Vijnana Yoga. It is the essence of everything. There are 4 types of people, Krishna says, who worship me. And there are 4 types of people who have no faith in me. He says, Chaturvida bhajante mam janaha sukratino arjuna. Artho jignasur artharthi nagrare cha bhartasava. There are 4 types of people. Chaturvida bhajante mam janaha. People worship me, there are 4 types. One is Artho Jignasura, the one who is in distress. बहुत ही तकलीफ में है, he is the one. Then second is Artho Jignasura, the one who is very inquisitive. One who is very curious in knowing. Jignasura, Artharthi. The third fellow is the one who wants, मेरे को अच्छा घर चाहिए, मेरे को, I want a good job and that thing. And Jnanecha, and the last one is the Jnani. And Krishna says of all the 4 people, the one who is Jnani is Samepriya. That means he is the one, because Jnani is the one who is closest to me. And then he is also Namam Drushkritino Modaha Prapadyante Naradhamaha Maya Aparita Gnanam Asuram Bhavam Ashrita. Again, there are 4 types of people who don't have faith in me. The one is who don't believe me. The other person who are deluded, who are materialistic. And then Maya Aparita Gnanam Prapadyante Naradhamaha Dushkritino Modaha. The people who are basically evil-minded, who always think, that if somebody wants to do me a favor, I always wonder, why is it doing it to me? They always, suspect. There's always something. They'll never. I think last time I had said, one of my Sushma Swaraj, when she was very sick, somebody wanted to donate her a kidney. Then immediately there was a chap, he said, no, probably he wants to, become an adopted son and take away all her property or something like that. I mean, why do people have to think negatively? Krishna is talking exactly of this kind of people. Anything you tell them good, they first think, isme koi hoga. It is just like in Bollywood movies, you always had that one inspector who always viewed in a party any chap coming in with a lot of suspicion. Pata isko maine kahin dekha hai. No. So somebody says that, the girl says, no, this chap is good. He says, no, meri nazar nahi choti, because they deal with criminals. Okay, that's by the way. Then in chapter 8, it is about attaining. Here he asks, Arjuna asks 7 questions. And these 7 questions are, what is Brahma, what is self, what is fruitive action, material manifestations of, and who are demigods. This is an interesting thing. We all have heard about demigods. According to Gita and according to Bhagwadgita and in Krishna, there's only one God, and under him it is just like a president or a prime minister under him, and there are a number of departments, and each have been given one portfolio. So if you want riches, if you want a job, if you want health, you go to that particular department. You go to Ministry of Health, you go to Ministry of HRD, or you go to a foreign posting, so each of the department. So Krishna also says the same thing. If you want any material benefits, there are enough departments, you go to them. But if you want to be connected with me, you want to stay with me, you come there. This is what there is said in Attaining Self-Supreme. What is Brahman? Thing. Chapter 9 is most confidential thing. Each decides his own goal. You all must be knowing there are 14 worlds. There are 7 worlds underneath, and then including Bhumi, there are 7 worlds above. Om, Bhu, Bhuva, Swaha, Maha, Jana, Tapa, Tala, Satya. This. And down below, Tapaha, Satya. And down below also, there is Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Mahatala, Talatala, Rasatala, and Patala. There are 7. Now, each one of these, there is one category of people who stay, who will live. If you study Bhagavatam, it is given in great detail. And the third thing is Swarga. That is where the people who do a lot of punyas go. And there is one for only devtas, and each one of the words. So, in the chapter 9 is all about this. What are all the different worlds? And each one, according to their karmas, go to these places. Then chapter the 10 is a Vibhuti Yoga. It is the splendor and opulence of the absolute. All qualities developed by Krishna, devotional services. It's not much. Then 11 is very important in the sense, very popular. You must all have heard this as Vishwarupa Darshana, because this is the first time when Arjuna asks him, he's convinced by then, after the 10, some knowledge he has got. He says, like you ask somebody, can you prove this? When you want to seek somebody's advice, so you want that man to prove his power. So then he shows us Vishwarupa Darshana. And Vishwarupa Darshana is supposed to be huge, and Krishna rises in full splendor, full of brilliance. And then Arjuna is so impressed, so shaken, he says, no, please withdraw your form. I believe what you're saying. And I tell others also. So that is Vishwarupa Darshana. And then 12th is your Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is very famous. There are 9 types of bhaktis. Last time also I had mentioned. And these 9 types of, you can follow any of these bhaktis, and then that is the road to moksha. That is the path to moksha. So any of the, it comes with your Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Bandana, Archanam, Vandanam, Sakha. You can follow any of this thing and still read. We had, last time I had given a couple of examples also. Then chapter 13 is one of the most difficult chapters of Bhagavad Gita. It is Kshetra Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga. That is Kshetra Kshetrajna. Kshetra here is a kind of an analogy. The body is a kshetra. It is a field. And Kshetrajna is he who knows the field. And who is that who knows the field? It's about Atma. So Kshetra Vibhaga Yoga is a very, very difficult thing. It comes in Advaita Vedanta. Then chapter 15 is about the material world and the spiritual world. What I have been talking about. Urdhva Moolam Adashakam Ashwatham Prahuravayam Chandamsi Yasya Parnani Yasya Vedasa Vedavita. It's a very beautiful that thing, and it's a very popular, this Purushottam Yoga. 16th is Surasura. Surasura is the good people and the bad people, the good qualities and the evil qualities. And then 17th is something about this, you have here again, Arjuna is highlighting about the qualities of gunas. By the way, 14th is, I forgot, there are 3 gunas. Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga. Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga is, we have Sattva Guna, Rajo Guna, and Tamo Guna. These are Prakritis, all the 3, and these are superimposed on the soul, and that is what makes us do. It's a little difficult, both 13th and 14th chapter. And the last chapter is Moksha Yoga, your Moksha Sannyasa Yoga. And Moksha Sannyasa Yoga, by the time 18th chapter is there, Arjuna says, I have understood what you have said, I will fight. And then the last about 4 or 5, in fact, 5, I think, shlokas are by Sanjaya. Bhagwadgita closes with Sanjaya, starts with Dhritarashtra and it closes with Sanjaya. Incidentally, the actual version is Bhagavad-gita was said on the 10th day. It was not on the first day. It was said like a flashback, because till 9 days, Dhritarashtra was very worried. He didn't know what was happening on the Kurukshetra. And then it was on Ekadashi day of Krishna Paksha. And then that time there were 2 Ekadashis. There was an Ekadashi on 30th. Normally Ekadashi happens on Chaturdashi or 15th day. The full moon normally is on the 14th day, but that day it happened to be, that is the only day which has happened on 30th, and Vyasa himself was quite surprised. He's written in Mahabharata. If you see all our granthas, you'll be surprised. All our granthas have got, whenever anything happened, the tithi was mentioned. And tithi is nothing but the time, the kala. It is astronomical calculations. So at that time, the position of the sun, moon, Mars, and so many grahas, and all of them, they were taken into account. And this kind of a calendar was prepared and the tithi was given out. Like Rama was born on so and so day, and Krishna was born on Ashtami. So when you superimpose these details from the Julian calendar, the present day what you have, on that you get the exact date and time. And according to that, November 22nd is the day when the war started. So on the that was supposed to be the Ekadasi day. So ultimately, when on the 10th day, when Dhritarashtra wants to know what is happening, because there's all bad news coming from the battlefront, then Sanjaya tells him that, he goes on to that. Dhritarashtra asks him, Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra, he asks him. Then Sanjaya tells him from day 1 what has happened. So this is what the actual thing is there. And so these are the 18 chapters. With this, we come to the close of Bhagavad Gita. In the end, we still have got about another 15-20 minutes. I'll talk to you a little about Sanskrit. This is a little more down-to-earth subject. Now, Sanskrit is not just merely a language like any other language. It is like Kannada, Telugu, Marathi, Gujarati, Sindhi, or whatever it is. It's not just a language. Sanskrit is a package. It's a whole life philosophy. It has got a lot of, because when you read Sanskrit, when you study Sanskrit, your mind, this changes. It becomes much calmer, because there is a thing about your how you pronounce, how you say. There are slokas, and Sanskrit has got plenty of literature, right from poetry to prose to, poetry, prose, the combined. And then it is the oldest language. I don't want to start a controversy. Suddenly somebody will come and say, no, our language is older, but then no language has got so rich in literature. And the beauty about it is almost all languages have evolved over a period of time. Maybe some languages started with some sign, then, few syllables, then they kept on adding it. And after lots of hundreds of years, then they brought in few words, then a little bit of grammars. But Sanskrit, nobody knows the origin, Nadi Nanta. Right from the day it is there, Rig Veda is supposed to be the oldest documented thing. Or even before that, whatever it is, Ramayana, nobody knows the exact dated period, because the Britishers, they took 2000 as the BC as a sort of benchmarking, and then they started all that. But much before that, the Surya Siddhanta, which is there in Jyotisham, it is 13,400 years old. So who would have wanted this knowledge at that time? Somebody has written it. So it is all there. So Sanskrit is a very, very ancient language, and it has been in the same form since the time it is known. And the one who, Panini was the one who made the grammar of Sanskrit, and it was a perfect grammar. Even today, even NASA and other thing, it is used for mathematical calculation. It's supposed to be the perfect computer language, because it is a language which is read and spoken as it is. It is not like in English, you say but and put, and your psychology P is not there and knowledge K is not there. It's not like that. In Sanskrit, it is read as it is written, and it is understood. There is no ambiguities as far as Sanskrit is concerned. It's a very rich language. If you compare Sanskrit with so many other languages, most of European languages, it is called Indo-European languages. In the Indic studies, it is there. There are 65 countries whose languages have got some Sanskrit or the other. You go to Indonesia, you go to Malaysia, you go to Sri Lanka, you go to Thailand, anywhere, there are some this thing which is there. Even today, the Indonesian Navy has got a slogan which is in Sanskrit. Our own naval the thing is in English. It is in Indonesia, the slogan for the Indonesian Navy is in Sanskrit. Also, even for their army and even for other things. Samudra Jaya Mahe or something like that. So it's a very ancient and old language. If you take English, for instance, English till about 9th, 10th century language didn't exist much. It came from the German Nordic kind of a language. Then it is somewhere in 13th, 14th century, you had then the Shakespearean English. If you read Shakespearean English in any of his plays, you don't understand. We don't understand. We need an interpretation of that or a translation of that. Then you have that Victorian English and Chaucer's English, this thing of Canterbury, and then we have the modern English. Then even in the modern English, if you see journalism, which was 30, 40 years ago, and today, there's a lot of change. And now, of course, you have WhatsApp English and all kinds of English is a constant. But Sanskrit, for thousands of years, what it was spoken then, what it is now, not a full stop, comma, it is the same. That is the classical language. So Sanskrit is that's why it's rightly called mother of all languages. And then in Sanskrit, in Sanskrit also there has been change in the style, but not that thing. Like for instance, if you read Vedas and Upanishads, they are old classical Sanskrit. The style is different, not the grammar part or the structure part. The style is different. Again, it's very, very difficult to decode those. Even for a person like me who's now been studying for almost 10 years, for me to decode when an old sloka comes, is very difficult, because that is the beauty of Sanskrit. The entire, about what could be have been written in about 40, 50 pages has been condensed into few slokas. And it gives a tremendous amount of that punch, that more. That's why they say the Ramayana or your Mahabharata. Ramayana has got 24,000 slokas, and Mahabharata has got 1 lakh slokas. Now, 1 lakh slokas, were it to be written in a prose style, that would have probably gone into I don't know how many thousands of pages. Because sometimes just 2 lines itself, they convey so much of meaning, the depth of the thing. Then, for those of you who are interested, on the lighter side, I'll just share with you one very nice how one enjoys Sanskrit. By the way, we have lost lots and lots of treasure of Sanskrit literature. Firstly, when Nalanda University itself was burnt, as you know, when it was burnt, the library had more than 9 lakh books, and then it was burning for 3 months. So you can imagine the amount of books that must have been destroyed. So much of knowledge has gone. Similarly, we had some thousands of temples where these were written in bark papers and everything has been destroyed. Some of them have been recovered. Even today, there's supposed to be more than 20, 30 billion your manuscripts which have been identified, which should have been there. And in 2003, during Vajpayee's government last phase, they started this National Manuscript Mission was started in Delhi under the Ministry of Culture under Gopalaswamy Iyengar. You must have heard of him. He was there, the Chief Election Commissioner, under his chairmanship. And they said, bring all your manuscripts from all over the country. So they started a movement, and they could only get about 2,000, 3,000 million manuscripts. It has all been preserved now, put in some kind of a order, subject-wise, and most of them were got from villages. And I know in the university we had a lot of people from Bengal, Orissa, and a few even from Andhra. Most of these people from Orissa, their parents would not, grandparents would not allow the scripts to be taken, because the scripts were preserved in their small mandirs at home. So that was supposed to be a kind of deity. They never read, they didn't know what was there, but it was some kind of a symbolic thing like that. And most of them, they said, our parents are not willing to part with it. And so many must have got destroyed, because Orissa has always been under threats of natural calamities, sometimes cyclones, sometimes floods, and a lot of things has been termite eaten. So they all been preserved. And the best part is almost about 3/4 of our billions of these manuscripts are lying in Central Asian countries. Countries like Mongolia, Uzbekistan, Russia itself has got some, I don't know how many millions of these manuscripts. They all kept in beautifully made glass caskets and all. Our Prime Minister, he went, I think 2 years back, he was shown, they're not making use of it. The only ones who made use of it is the Germans. They're still doing it, some of it, because Germans, they took it away. They took from British. And how British got it, they took it from French. And how French got it is, French, there was a Charles Bernier, I think. He was the advisor to Aurangzeb during his tenure. He was the artillery officer, French artillery officer in Delhi Sultanate at that time. And then he had a brother, by name Darashikoh. You must have heard, out of the 4 brothers, Darashikoh was there. Now Darashikoh had, with the help of a lot of scholars, he had gone to Kashi, and 50 Upanishads had been translated to Persian and all that. He was a very, very secular-minded person. Aurangzeb was elder brother. He should have been actually the successor to the Mughal Empire, but then Dharashikha got rid of him. When he got rid of him, he got him beheaded, and then he wanted the entire the library to be burned. So to make sure that it was done, he sent the chap Charles Bunyan, and in his own account I've read. So I went looking for this place in Old Delhi, in Guru Gobind University, just outside that is there. I searched almost for about one full day. Finally, somebody said it's in archives. It's an old building, and right now there's nothing. The whole building was burnt, and all these things were shipped to France, because he was a French officer, and he gave the report to Aurangzeb saying that it's all been burnt. And when British captured during the war a lot of French documents, and then the Germans took them over. Right now, it's a lot of it in German. So what I'm trying to say is a lot of this Sanskrit thing is lying outside. We don't even know what it contains, but there is a treasure of information in this. A lot of efforts are being done, and all languages have this origin in Sanskrit. If you see in English, I tried to do a research. I made out about 300, 400, that thing. Like, for instance, you say bandhana. Bandhana comes from the word bind. That bind word comes from bandhana. To say dana. Dana is donation. So donation comes from that. To say dantaha, teeth, dental comes from that. So there are plenty of words which are there, and the best, some of the most, this thing is in Gita there is a word called tumulaha. Tumula is a tumultuous. That word, the din, that thing is there. So somewhere, I'm sure, definitely English is only about 400 years old. So they must have been taken from Sanskrit. And also there is a course sthagana. Sthagana is stagnation. So if you write sthagana in English, it comes to stagnation. So like that, there are 400 words I had compiled when I was doing the research, this thing. So now there is one very interesting small thing you say. You all know Puranas. I'm sure some of you know this basic thing. So there is a thing called Ahi Ripupati Kanta Tata. Ahi means a snake. In Sanskrit, Ahi means snake. Ripu is enemy. Ahi Ripu. So who is, I'll give a little background to this. Just another 5 minutes. I'll give a little background to this. When Vyasa wrote Mahabharata, he wanted somebody to take down the dictation. He wanted it because it's going to be very fast and it is a huge grantha. So he was looking for somebody. So Narada suggested you go to Ganesha. So Ganesha agreed with the condition. He said, I will keep writing. The moment you stop, I will stop. So Vyasa was thinking of creating a little complication in the language so that it is understood by Ganesha, because that was Vyasa's counter condition. He says, okay, I may stop, but I'll allow you to think. So this may be just one of those fancy things, but then at the same time, it's very interesting. So Vyasa, once he wanted to build up a plot and he wanted a little time, so he threw a kind of riddle and he said, Ahi Ripu Pati. Ahi is snake, and who is Ripu of Ahi? Who is the Ripu, that is the enemy of the snake? It is Garuda. Okay. And who is the Pati of Garuda? Is Vishnu. And who is the Kanta of Vishnu? Is Lakshmi. And Tata, in Sanskrit, Tata means father. And who's Tata of the thing? That is Samudra. Lakshmi's father is Samudra. And Sampuja. Now, who was the one who worshipped Samudra worshipped? It was Rama when he was crossing. And Kanta, that is Sita. That is Hara. Hara is, she was kidnapped by Ravana. Tanya, who is Ravana's Tanya? Tanya is son. Khudka, that is Indrajit. And Nihantu. Nihantu is the one who was injured by Indrajit, was Lakshmana. And Pranadata, who was the one who gave him life? Hanuman. It was Hanuman. And Dvajasya, in Hanuman was there on the Dvaja. On whose Dvaja was it? It was Arjuna. And Dvajasya Sakhi. Sakhi is friend. Who was Arjuna's friend? Krishna. Sutta, his son, Sutta, is Pradyumna. And his son is Aniruddha. So it is Sutta Sutta Kanta Tata Sampuja. And who was his Aniruddha's this thing Kanta? Aniruddha's wife was a woman by name Usha. And Usha's father was Banasura. And he was a worshipper of Shiva. And Pitu Shirasi Pavitra Vahanti Javni Mapunatu. In the end, it says Pitru Shirasi. That means Shiva's on his head is Pavitra. Janvi is the Ganges, Vahanti. Janvi Mapunatu. That is, may I be purified. So this whole thing sounds like this. Ahiripu pati kanta tata tata sampujya kanta haratanyaha nihranta pranadata dvajasya sakhi susasutata kanta tata sampujya kanta pitrushirasi vahanti jamim apnatu. So all this, it just says, I pray to Ganga. So this riddle was thrown to Ganesha, which kept him thinking. No, this is said it in a different way so that he could build up a plot. So, for students in the university and all to keep their thing, there are a lot of things which are great. This is one of the popular things. Apart from this, in the Kalidasa's Sanskrit was, it's very easy Sanskrit, somewhere in the third or fourth centuries. Kalidasa has written a huge amount of dramas and stories and all that thing. It was very easy, but what happened in the 14th, 15th century, some people wanted to compete and they made Sanskrit very, very complicated. 14th, 15th, 16th centuries. And also it was a Bhakti movement. So you had Ramanuja Acharya, Madhvacharya, who wrote commentaries, and then there was a lot of philosophical text came, which became very tough. Then in 17th century, again, it started easing. Now Sanskrit is well spread. Unfortunately, there are not very many people who, we got detached. There are 2.5 lakh Gurukulas, which are our basic education system. So when Lord Macaulay brought this in 1935 and in 1955 it was implemented, in about 100 years, completely a Gurukul system finished. Now, a Gurukul doesn't mean, it is not a liturgical, just some ceremonial puja part and all that thing. They taught 16 subjects, right from geography, geology. In each of these subjects, unfortunately, it all been kept thing, but slowly there's a revival. We do not know how, to what extent it will be succeeded, because English has come. Even as I'm talking, we are speaking in English, so it will take a long, long time. But there seems to be a slight revival as far as Sanskrit is concerned. So with this, I come to end of this. We are almost this thing. If there's any questions.
Sir, you have to speak about Saint Daditi. You told me to.
Yeah, Daditi. Thank you so much, ma'am, for reminding. It's a very interesting thing. In 1948, when Pakistan attacked, as soon as we got independence, Srinagar was saved by a battalion for 4 Kumaon, and there one Major Sharma was there, who was the company commander there at the airfield. And
Somnath Sharma.
Major Somnath Sharma. And his brother was Army Chief. He was my divisional commander. So, and he was the first Paramveer Chakra. But you'll be surprised to know he did not get Paramveer Chakra in 1948. This was given in 1950 because somebody had to design. At that time, we didn't have Paramveer Chakra. So there was one Adjutant General, Hira Lal, and he called up General, there was one Major General Kanolkar. He was from, I think, Armored Corps officer. And his wife was a Czech Hungarian born. And then she had fallen in love with him when he was in London doing a Kimberley course. And then she was so enamored by Hinduism, she changed her name to Savitri Bai. And then she studied all the scriptures, she studied Sanskrit and all that thing. And she had studied about Dadichi. Now, Dadichi was a great saint, and he was grandson of Dhanvantri. Those of you who heard about Dhanvantri. Why I mentioned about Dadichi was Vivek Babu mentioned on that day, and that day happened to be Savitri Bai's birthday. And that lady, she was the one who designed this Paramveer Chakra medal, in which Dadiji's Saint Dadiji's picture is there. Now, what is so important of Dadiji? Now, he was son of Atharva. Atharva, one who was written that Atharva Veda. And Dadiji was a very, very evolved saint. And once what happened, there was a constant fight always between Suras and Asuras. You must always seen in the war, including your Kshairsagar thing for Amrit, for that nectar, that fight went on. And Indra was always the lord of the three worlds. So Indra's, when his kingdom became a little insecure, so all these people, it is just like what has happened in Afghanistan when they came to know they're going to lose anyway. So all these devtas, they brought their weapons and they wanted to keep it with Dadichi. They said we wanted to keep it safely. Now, where do you keep it? So Dadichi said you can't. So the whole thing was melted and he had absorbed it in his body, and his entire body had become Vajra. It has become bones and all. It was so hard. So the only way to defeat this was by making a weapon out of his body. And that is why Indra's weapon was called Vajra. So some devtas came to Dadichi. They said, we want your body, these bones. So how could he give it? The only way he could give it is by allowing himself, giving up his body. So he gave up his life, and that was made. And look at the beautiful philosophy, how much a Western woman, she has gone into these details to make. So Paramveer Chakra has a picture of Dadichi. This is what I just wanted to share with you. And that happened to be her birthday that day. A great lady. She, after her husband passed away, she took to sannyas and she spent her last days in Ramakrishna Mutt in Calcutta. So that is the story of Dadichi. Before I wind up, I was thinking of another thing, this Charuvakas. I don't know how many of you have heard about this Charuvakas. Charuvakas is one of the darshanas, one of the philosophies in India. It has been quite popular. Normally, Charuvakas are supposed to be, that some people loosely call them, they are atheists, and they're not. They had a philosophy of their own. Charuvakas said that they did not believe in the thing of rebirth. They were highly materialist. They said, "Jo bhi jina hai aaj ke liye, there is no such thing as tomorrow." And that is why there is their entire philosophy was encapsulated in just these 4 lines. It said that yavat jivet sukham jivet. मतलब जब तक रहना है सुख से रहो. Rinam kritva gritam pivet. मतलब even if you have to borrow, you drink ghee. Drinking ghee means living well. Yavat jivet sukham jivet rinam kritva gritam pivet. Punarjanmam na vidyate. That means there is no return of life. In Pune, some years back, I found that in a bar, a very nice board somebody had put. Pitva, pitva, yavat pitva, bhutale, patita bhutale. That means drink so much that one falls to the ground. Punah uttaya punah pitva. Punarjanmam na vidyate. Get up again and drink. So that is a typical Charvaka kind of thing. And a lot of people say Charvaka has been there for millions of years. Not so. It was not there, although the Jabali was a minister of Dasharatha. You know, after Rama goes away to the forest, then he goes to, along with the team, to ask Rama to come back, change his mind. Then he says, you put Dasharatha and you should not be running away, you know, just because your father said, some woman has said that and all. You know, he's being very, very down to earth and practical. So Rama sort of chides him and he sends him away. So he was supposed to be one of the first Charvakas, but at that time, this Charvaka concept came only during Buddhism. It was not there at that time. With this, I come to the end of this session. I would like to thank you all for your patient hearing, and to Gaur Sahib in particular, and Hemaji, and Mrs. Rashmi Singh. Thank you very much. If there's anything you have any questions, I'll try and answer. I'm not an expert in any one of this. It's just I was sharing my experiences of what I've said. Hemaji, I finished.
Rashmiji, please unmute yourself.
No questions? Okay. इतनी नॉलेज लेने के बाद क्वेश्चंस दिमाग में आते ही नहीं है. So in fact, thank you is a very small word for you for so much of insightful knowledge. और जब कुछ जानते हैं तो बहुत अच्छा लगता है, बट उसको इम्प्लीमेंट कर पाए तो शायद और भी अच्छा लगेगा. मुझे आपकी कार्मिक थ्योरी बहुत अच्छी लगी कर्नल विजय. कार्मिक थ्योरी के लिए मुझे किसी ने बताया था कि हमेशा अपने मन को वश में करो. तो मैंने किसी से पूछा जिसने बताया कि मन को वश में कैसे करें. तो I got one very nice slogan. Attention goes, energy flows. Energy flows, things grow. So think before you think. सोचने से पहले सोचिए. तो आज आपने बहुत सोचने का मौका दिया. इसके लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. And as a concluding evening, as a MC, I want to thank you, Himaji, God sir. God sir यहाँ हैं या नहीं हैं, वो thanks वैसे भी नहीं लेते, but thanks from the core of my heart. आप सबको बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, और जिन्होंने सुना उन सबको भी बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Colonel Vijay. Thank you, Rashmi ji. We close the session.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.